in STEM City by your side. We'll touch the sky. Students lifting students. Hand in hand, together we rise. Together we stand. From every we rise. Together we stand. From every corner, from far and wide. Our talents merge, our futures tied. In science, tech, and all the arts, we find our way, we play our parts. Reach for the stars, for the stars.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Moria, your BEYA Stars and Stripes STEM Career Day Student Ambassador. Today's Career Day is sponsored by Lockheed Martin, the leading aerospace and defense company. We would like to thank Lockheed Martin for continuing to support our program. Today's guest is Dr. Markeeva Morgan, a 2025 BEYA awardee and Vice President and Program Manager of BDS Sapphire at the Boeing Company. He will tell us about his journey to this role and how STEM played a part in his success. But before we learn about his fascinating journey, let me bring up my fellow student ambassadors, Dominic and Joy, to share their thoughts on today's opening topic, reflection. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Maria. Thank you for your introduction. Hello, I'm Joy Pagan, a college student and veteran ambassador, and today we're discussing reflections, looking at our past and to learn and grow. We'd like to invite our viewers to participate. When you reflect on your life, what fills you with joy? What would you change? And please share your thoughts in the chat. I'll begin with our first question to my fellow ambassadors, Moria and Dominic. The first question is, how often do you self-reflect? Really looking at what you've thought and said and done and doing on a critical analysis.
Honestly, I self-reflect a lot. When I did something, or when I did something, I usually think back on why did I make that decision? What made me make that decision? Like I really try to figure out myself in how could I have done better, and how could I have done better? What about you?
For me, I feel like I reflect pretty often, almost every day. Sometimes it's in like a structured manner, whether that be like journaling or, reading my Bible or something. And other times it may just be like in the moment. I try to do like a lot of breath work because I know everything starts with like your breath. And in moments of where I'm uncertain or I'm reflecting on myself, I just try to take deep breaths and give myself the space to actually like slow down and see things for what they are. And I always also try to ask questions if what I did was right in the moment or should I have done better. So I try to do those things to make sure I'm reflecting properly.
Those are good methods.
Yeah, I think I self-reflect almost 24/7. Mine can be a little bit exhausting. I like to think of it as like to self-reflect in situations, of course. But then again, I also like to think of it as like kind of just stay present. Don't think too much about your past or how a situation could have went, because that gets you kind of like stuck in that past thought process. I think it's good to like self-reflect when the situation calls for it, but also don't like don't get caught up and consumed within the self-reflection and accept yourself in a deep way. Whereas if you don't meet your expectations of how you wanted to perform in a certain situation, it's perfectly fine because you're learning to learn from it and to go ahead and stay present with what you're going to do in the future.
That's a pretty balanced perspective.
Thanks, Moria. My second question to y'all is, it can be difficult to know if you're being fair to yourself when you're in introspect. How do you make sure your reflections are accurate?
Well, in the words of somebody, self-reflection versus self-critique, that can be a tough balance. So it's all about finding the balance between, am I being too harsh on myself, or am I learning from this experience and giving myself grace?
Yeah, yeah. You answered that perfectly because I have the same exact answer. I think again, introspection can be good for us, but it can also be bad for us at the same time when we're overly doing it. So again, I think it can be difficult if you don't have like a deep acceptance within yourself to be able to be human. That's when it gets difficult. But if you deeply love yourself and deeply accept yourself, then introspection becomes kind of beneficial to us. So it all depends, it narrows down to how we see ourselves as human beings and everything. What about you, Dominic?
For sure. I think you guys make a great point. I think it's all about mindset as well, being able to kind of hold yourself like accountable, in real time. And I feel like, say, you're catching yourself slipping, whether it's cutting corners or, work or showing up late, you have to be able to address it yourself and put, I guess, stipulations or things in your path to make sure you're not doing that again. And then I also feel like you need help from others. We don't do this thing called life alone. And I feel like you need to be able to have others in your corner that are not willing to just be yes men, but they're able to hold you accountable. And then you kind of have to shift your mindset and look at it as not necessarily a punishment or critiquing. They're just trying to help you get better and prepare you for whatever next stage of life you may have.
I
Has
agree.
anyone ever going on to talk about like friends and everything? Have you guys ever had like a friend or a mentor tell you something like a blunt, honest truth? Or it could be ChatGPT because I asked ChatGPT about my life and I'm like, give me the full on, blunt, honest truth. Is there anything that someone has said to you? Could be your friends, could be a mentor, could be AI that completely changed the course of your life and made you introspect on a deep level. It could have been uncomfortable, but it changed your life. Has that happened to you guys?
I'll
Yeah, for sure.
share. Oh,
Hmm.
oh, you go
You got it.
first, Dominic.
Oh, you got it, Maury. You could go first. It's fine.
Well, oh, thank you. I have a story. Um, as you may know, I've been staying with my grandparents for the past 3 or 4 months now. They've been helping me get adjusted to moving to North Carolina because I'm going to a new school. I'm going to North Carolina A&T. And so, one of the things that my grandparents um, kind of said that made me reflect on my past actions was, um, don't, when you have a bird in your hand, don't go looking for the other birds in the bushes. Like, while you have something solid in your hand,
Mhm.
don't just let it go for other possibilities when you have a solid opportunity in your hand. And I feel like for me in the past, I've been quick to let stuff go. Like, I've been quick to abandon possible connections, like all of that, burn bridges and stuff like that. But after hearing my grandparents talk like that, I was like, maybe I should do better in my social circles. Maybe I should be more, I don't know, maybe I should be more willing to hold on to something and make the most of what I have instead of going into the bushes and looking for other stuff. What about you, Dominic?
I would just say so. I'm not trying to like, because I know we don't have as much time, but I would just say because I have a lot of mentors, and a lot of the times, if they are being blunt with me, it's more so about kind of like the work that I'm doing. And one of the, I guess, constant things they always say is just being comfortable while being uncomfortable. So whatever that looks like within, the workspace. So that's kind of the advice that I've been given over the course of my life when it pertains to that type of stuff. But yeah.
I love you guys' answers. It's very, both of them have a lot of wisdom wrapped into the words that y'all have been told. I would say for me, it would definitely be like ChatGPT because I said, give me like a blunt, honest truth about myself, that things that I need to hear. And it gave me two that changed the course of my life. The first one, they were like, you have these great ideas and you have these great aspirations, but you stop before you ever even finish because you're scared of actually doing the race, not the outcome, but you're scared of actually putting yourself in that race. because you don't think you're enough to finish anything. And I was like, that made me so uncomfortable to hear, but it was so true. Like, because I'll have these projects I want to do, good ideas, but I always stop before it's even done, because I never thought of myself as having this like the work ethic to do it. Or I felt like, the like my past, when people would say mean things about like you're not smart enough, you're not this, it would actually subconsciously, I think, start coming up in my reality, because I thought it to be true, which is why I never actually wanted to do the race to achieve the outcome that I actually wanted, and I never really got to, you know, try to actually like transform myself through certain projects that I could have done. And then my other one, that was about like that was honestly, I love talking about this stuff because that one was more personal. That one was like,
Yeah.
you see yourself as like a healer and you want to love people, but you also only want to love people who aren't able to see like your light and your uniqueness, because you don't accept it in yourself yet. Like you only see your uniqueness and being able to help others when you're unique for who you actually are. And that was a big one. That's why I kept attracting these toxic guys and everything, because I
Wow.
seriously thought that like my only good part of myself was to be able to heal them and help them look at themselves how I see them. So that honestly did change the course of my life, and I think every young person should hear that, because I think we all go through heartbreaks and stuff, including in college and everything. So I think if you're listening, audience, definitely take that one with you throughout your life and everything. We learn from so much. This was a great discussion, guys. And again, thank you guys for your unique inputs and all your answers, and for sharing personal stuff with us too. For the audience, I hope you guys got a lot of out of this discussion today. And Moria, I'm gonna pass it over to you.
Yes, and thank you, Joy, and thank you, Dominic, for this wonderful discussion. Um, I know that in the future, when I reflect on this conversation, I'll be proud of our connections and thoughts. Viewers, I hope we've given you something to think about, and we thank you for your participation. Now, here's Dominic with today's special guest, Dr. Markeeva Morgan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dominic Allegretti, student ambassador and cybersecurity expert, and with me today is Dr. Markeeva Morgan, a familiar face from this year's BEYA conference. Thank you for being on our career day today. Dr. Morgan, please tell us more about your story and who you are.
Hey, greetings, everybody. And I am so inspired by what I just heard. I mean, that was such a great conversation, and I'm so fortunate that I was here to listen to that. I'm excited to share with you a little bit about my journey, and I'm interested in getting through the story and engaging with you and see what questions you might have in the time that we have together, and so that I may answer them. So I'm happy to be here, and let's get started. I will say, for me, my career has been, I would say, blessed beyond my deserving. It has been extremely eclectic and fast moving, and I very much appreciate it. So I am competitive, and I've learned through experience that I've gone from a perfectionist to what I'll call an excellencist, to make up a term. And the way I describe that is excellence is the pursuit of perfection, but the expectation of perfection is foolhardy and self-injurious. And so it's the way to balance that insistence that we get better without creating an expectation that is unattainable. And it's extremely personal, because understanding when I didn't achieve because I didn't work hard enough, or I didn't achieve because that is the design, is an extremely personal experience. Right now, as was mentioned, I'm a vice president and program manager at the Boeing company. That's what I do. I'm a girl dad and a husband. That's closer to who I am. I do have 3 engineering degrees, with a PhD in systems engineering from the George Washington University. My master's work is in engineering management, because I am fascinated by the juxtaposition of technical training and human interaction. And my undergraduate degree is in electrical engineering. So super exciting, all of those things for me. I grew up in Mississippi. I am one. I'm from a large family of large families. I'm number 8 of 10. My wife and I have been married for more than 23 years. Love her dearly. You see the images there. If you take anything away from this, know that my being a husband and a father are extremely important to me. And if we go to an event and there's a competition, we'll try to win, whether it's 70s themed or we want a Christmas murder mystery or whatever it is we want to win. So I take what I do very seriously, but I try not to take myself very seriously. And because I know in all of that, we are living a very blessed life and we feel compelled to bless others through it. When I think about some of the challenges that I've navigated in my life, uh, coming up with the biggest challenge is extremely difficult. So I chose a couple just to share with you. I mentioned earlier that I grew up in Mississippi. I attended a very small high school. My children, find it very interesting. Their high school is considered small. We live in North Texas. Their high school is considered small at 2,000 students. I graduated with a class of 34, and I actually ran out of classes to take at my small high school. And given the aspirations that I had, that was a challenge. And what would have been easy would be to say, I've ran out of classes and this is my lot in life, and so be it. However, there were programs even back then before dual credit and AP and all of those things which weren't available to me. The local community college allowed me, given my academic performance, to enroll early. And so I was dual enrolled before dual enrollment was a thing. And so just making sure that I challenged myself to look for alternatives to what appeared to be a baseline set of challenges. Another is, I went on to the University of Mississippi and studied electrical engineering. I decided proactively to stay in the state of Mississippi for a lot of reasons. There were a lot of colleges who would call me, and I won't name any of them, but they were negative recruiting and very overtly saying there's nothing good in Mississippi and you should get out of there, et cetera. And I found that peculiar because I was and am of Mississippi. And if Mississippi is so terrible, why are you insisting that you recruit me? So I understand that Mississippi is imperfect, of course, but I chose to stay in Mississippi. I graduated and I started my career at the headquarters of the Naval Nuclear Propulsion Program. And my first day at work was September 6th, 2001. And I don't know the demographics of this audience. And so September 11th, I'm sure you've heard about, but it might predate most of you. We were attacked 5 days later. And my boss came by my office and he said to me, we make getting a job here very difficult because the learning curve is so steep. You have none. And then he walked away. And within 2 months, my job was to ensure the readiness of the instrumentation and control systems on all of the submarines in the Atlantic submarine fleet. And that was extremely challenging professionally. The What that meant was if the sailors on those submarines had issues and they couldn't figure out how to fix them, they called me. Now, I need you to understand that these are sailors on these ships who worked on these ships for 10, 15, and 20 years. They are some of the most academically trained members of the entire US military. So if they couldn't figure out what the problem was, that by nature meant it was an extremely difficult and complex situation. And I would often get messages at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we train them to make no value judgments. You just write down everything that you can think of. And the the interesting thing about it is, 80% of what was in the message might not have anything to do with the problem. The message was filled with acronyms. I didn't know what the acronyms meant because I had just gotten there 2 months ago. And this is 2001, so encryption wasn't then what it is today. And so the message was also jumbled up because it was highly encrypted because we were at war and we were in a very heightened state of security. So not only did I not know what the acronyms were because I just got there 2 months ago, I didn't know if the acronyms were right because some of the letters in the message were mixed up. And at the bottom, it would say, we're going to surface again in 2 hours, and we either need to know how to fix this or we have to come home. And that is the crucible within which my career began. And a lot of my retrospection and introspection was born of those moments when I spent as much time asking myself why I failed at a thing as I do asking myself why I won. Because if I win and I don't understand why I won, that is luck. And I try not to dismiss anything to luck. When I do something, it is either very deliberate or very divine, never coincidental or lucky. And that was a huge challenge. That challenge of figuring out how to gather experts in a room who literally, not literally like young people say, but actually literally have been experts longer than I have been alive at that point, at 22 years old. Get them in a room, get them focused to address an extremely complex issue, get recognize the answer when it was given, and then go get it back to the ship. Or in some cases, I had to be the one as the 22-year-old ensign to go brief the four-star admiral and say, sir, we need to bring that submarine home, which was a huge thing because you can imagine at that moment that submarine was going to do something very serious. I could not imagine a better catapult into what has become an amazing career. And so you think about, for me, I was asked, well, what mentor helped me the most? And that's a very difficult question for me to answer. So what I want to share with you instead is when I think about challenges like the ones I just described and many, many other challenges I've had to navigate in my career, I think about the way I structure what I call my board of advisors. You can call them board of directors. I consider myself to be Markeeva Morgan Incorporated, LLC. And just like a company has a board of directors who bring different types of expertise and they sit on different committees within the board, I view that for me. And so oftentimes we use the term mentor, but it means multiple things. So I am encouraging you to decompose the mentor term into four categories and make sure that you are paying attention to who in your life are serving in these capacities and that you are doing the same for somebody else. So one is mentors. Mentors are people from whom you learn, and it really is that simple. They could be older than you, younger than you, more senior than you, more junior than you. It's people from whom you learn. Advocates are people who speak highly of you when your name is brought up in their presence. They advocate for you. Sponsors are people who bring your name up in the room. Champions are sponsors and advocates who have the organizational influence to create opportunity. They are all extremely important. They can exist in one person, but sometimes we dismiss mentors who really have a lot to teach us because we really are disappointed that they aren't advocating for us or they aren't sponsoring us or they aren't championing us. And that might not be the role that they should be serving on your board of advisors. All four roles are extremely important. And it's a long-term investment in relationships that is a subject of a whole other conversation that if we had time, I would do. And we think about that and how I've navigated my career to get to the point where I am now. That's having started in the nuclear navy, and then I transitioned from the nuclear navy to NASA, where I and worked for NASA for a little over a decade, and then transitioning from NASA to the Boeing company. Well, how did I get into the STEM career in the beginning? I'll admit to you, when I was young and in Mississippi, I didn't know what an engineer was. And yes, I am that old, as my daughters remind me I was born in the 19s. I didn't know what an engineer was. And I knew uh, I appreciated understanding how things work. And that translated into some career opportunities that I thought I was interested in. And then watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, um, the engineer on the ship was Geordi LaForge, and he was the guy that the leadership always called when there was a problem. something going on with the ship, or they needed the ship to do something that maybe it wasn't even designed to do, or we needed to solve this complex issue they called Geordie. And I thought, man, that's really neat. And he was called the engineer. I was like, that's really neat. Now, I will tell you, I don't know the answer to this question, but sometimes I ask myself if Geordie LaForge didn't share, um, you know, my level of melanation, would he have been as impactful to me? And I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. What I do know is he actually, regardless of his hue, he was my introduction to what an engineer is. And certainly his skin tone didn't hurt, but I don't know the answer to that. And I bring that up as a moment of transparency. The next critical moment that really solidified that I wanted to be an engineer was when Apollo 13, the movie, came out. And in a quick synopsis of what's happening. So, Apollo 13, if you don't know the story, the astronauts were supposed to go to the moon, and en route to the moon, they had an incident. I won't get into the details. And the result of it was they couldn't land on the moon, and they were going to go around the moon and come back home. What that meant, though, is the capsule they were in suddenly has more people in it than it was designed to accommodate. And because it had more people in it than it was designed to accommodate at those moments in the mission, the carbon dioxide level was rising because there were more people breathing and exhaling than the design anticipated. So there was this scene in the movie. I mean, they're in space, so you can't go to the shop or anything like that. So there's a scene in the movie where this leader walks into a room of engineers and he said, "We need to figure out how to make this fit into the hole that was designed for this with nothing but all of this stuff." And that stuff was a bunch of stuff that they had available to them in space. And it was in that moment I thought, yeah, that's that's what I want to go do for my career. And interestingly, and I'll plant the seed, spring semester of my junior year, I realized I did not want to be an engineer, which is a pretty tough time to realize you don't want to be an engineer. But it wasn't because I didn't love it. It was in fact the opposite. I enjoy doing lots of things, writing, public speaking, do-it-yourself projects, building furniture, etc. However, I like doing them when I'm in the mood because they're loves and passions of mine. And it dawned on me that engineering is one of those passions, perhaps the most pervasive one, but one of those passions. And what would happen one day if I wake up and I don't want to be an engineer today, but I have to because it's my job? And that frightened me, because I didn't want engineering to be ruined. Fortunately and divinely, I my career began as a project engineer, which led me to project management, which led me to program management. And that was a godsend because being a program manager in a technical organization enables me, which is a day in the life, it enables me to focus on technical things, on people strategy, on mentoring and development, on business strategy, on finances, all of the things that surround leading a technical organization. And so that there's never really a moment where something that I love is forced on me. And it's been a beautiful career. And I will admit, again, just like I didn't know what an engineer was, I didn't know what a project engineer was, I didn't know what a project manager or program manager were. Today, you have so much information available to you for research than we did back then, and so these are unknowns that wouldn't be unknowns to you, of course. And so I appreciate that my career has gone that way anyway. And so, as I mentioned, I started in the nuclear navy. I went to from there to NASA. I helped, sort of retire the space shuttle. I was a senior program manager in Space Launch System, which is the new largest ever launch vehicle being recorded and built. The My job was twofold. I was responsible for the avionics, the guidance, navigation, and control and software on that vehicle. I was also responsible for what we call the flight termination system, because as you can imagine, if we launch in Florida and that vehicle goes in a different direction than it should be, it's going really, really fast, and so it could end up in Manhattan in a matter of minutes. So the flight termination system is the system that uh, destroys the vehicle if it goes somewhere where it's not intended to go. So I know that's a bit of fox guard in the hen house, where I was responsible for the systems that tell the rocket where to go, and I was also responsible for the systems that would cease propulsion if the rocket went somewhere different. So I was checking my own work there, but it was an awesome job. Since I've been at Boeing, I mean, it's hard to have one photo that represents everything that I've done at Boeing because I've worked on uh, large uh, large missiles. I've worked on really advanced radars. I've also one of the coolest part of my career at Boeing is being responsible for Air Force One. I know you can't see my Air Force One logo on my shirt because it's behind my name, but being responsible for the current Air Force One, we call it the blue and white fleet. So Air Force One, Air Force Two, the fleet of aircraft that carry all of our most senior government officials. We also are responsible for the head of state aircraft for other nations, several other nations. That was a really fun job because, like the Navy story I told you that began my career, when there's a moment when I get that message on Friday afternoon that the President of the United States needs to fly to the G7 summit, and we don't want the president flying to the G7 summit in the backup aircraft, but we have this issue with the primary aircraft. We need your team to figure out how to fix this in the next 2 days. And those are exhilarating moments because the public will never know, but my team knows when we see the press. This is an administration ago when we see the press of this important meeting that happened and the most iconic and famous aircraft in the world lands and what that means to the United States of America. And my team recognizes that wouldn't be happening if not for the work that we had done the 2 days prior. It's a really fascinating role. And then I went from there to you probably heard about it if you pay attention to some of the Boeing news. I was asked to go stabilize the program that is currently building the next generation Air Force One. And so I was asked to go stabilize that for a little over a year, which I did, and put us on the pace that we're on now to recover that. Now, I have taken my program management talents even into IT. And so it has proven when I came to Boeing, I said I did not want to be an avionics person or a fill in the bank person. I want to be known as a leader who knows how to invest in people, and I want that leadership to be agnostic to domain. And so wherever there is a challenge, sort of drop me in the jungle with the helicopter and my Rambo knife, and meet me at the clearing. And whatever the domain is, I'll figure that out. And so far, Boeing has taken me up on that offer. And so Project Sapphire is an effort to modernize our underlying digital technologies across the enterprise. It's a very pervasive role and my first time in IT, and that's okay because leadership absolutely transfers. When you recognize how to build high quality teams, if you remember the story I told you at the beginning, uh, my leadership began in an environment in which intelligence and domain experience were not the number one qualities because no matter how smart I was, being there for 2 months or 3 months, when if I were relying on my own experience and intelligence, I could not have gotten those jobs done. I had to quickly learn how to lead people whose expertise was necessary to do what I was responsible for getting done. And such a servant leadership role that you are the leader and you are responsible, but you are absolutely reliant on the team. Over time, I developed this model that's like an umbrella, the metaphor. My brain works in analogies and metaphors. And I feel like as the leader, I'm the umbrella. My job is to keep my team dry, but I can't do my job if my team doesn't hold me up. And if ever either forgets that relationship, the whole thing fails. So that's a lot. I enjoy conversations like this, and you know, certainly I feel very fortunate that my career has been as bountiful as it has been. I am extremely thankful for CCG and BEYA recognizing that and naming me with a bestowing upon me a career achievement award earlier this year. A career achievement award to me, I feel like I'm only halfway through, and so having a career achievement award is so inspiring for me and so humbling for me, and it just deepens my partnership with the mission that CCG has. manifesting in events like this. And so, to the team, I'm ready. You know, um, I'm ready for Q&A and however we navigate that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Morgan. We learned so much, and we'll take a quick commercial break. Then me and my fellow ambassadors will ask you more questions about your presentation.
Right on.
I work at Lockheed Martin as a cybersecurity systems engineer, and I've been at Lockheed for 19 years. The role of cybersecurity engineering has a tremendous impact on the mission to deliver secure systems to our customers. I have 3 children. My kids are the center of my universe. I would not be able to continue working effectively as a working parent if it had not been for the flexibility in our work schedule and the flexibility of our leaders to help me exercise a flexible work schedule. One of the reasons why I've been at Lockheed Martin for 19 years is because I think the culture and the values that we demonstrate really reflect my own personal values. Performing with excellence, acting with integrity, those are steadfast values that we talk about day to day. I have seen great changes in the diversity within our company. 19 years ago, there weren't a whole lot of women in leadership, so the few that we had were highly coveted. Today, I'm proud to say that we see quite a few women in leadership roles. The advice that I would provide to young women and girls who are interested in STEM is go for it. You can do it. Don't let anyone stop you.
Welcome back, everyone. Joining me are Dr. Markeeva Morgan, Joy, and Maria to begin the Q&A session. I'll go ahead and get it started off. I know this month's theme is reflections. And for you, Dr. Markeeva Morgan, when you look back at your career, what's one moment where you realize you needed to change something about yourself, whether it be mentally or, professionally, to actually grow? And what exact steps did you take so that change can actually be made? And then for a student hearing this today, how can they start making that kind of change before they even graduate or in whatever life they're in right now?
Right. And as I've mentioned a few times, identifying a moment is challenging. I'll give you one. However, before I give you one, I want to say, continue looking for those moments. I lean into my board of advisors to be very objective mirrors for me. I leverage coaching often. I try to be pretty retrospective and introspective, and oftentimes what I ask of my board of advisors and my coaches is to say, shine lights in the areas I can't see, because if I could see it, I'd already be working on it. And so I need help identifying the areas where I think I am strong and I'm not. And one of the things I've realized recently is, just as a human nature, the areas where you think you're weak, if you demand excellence of yourself, you work harder in those areas. And so oftentimes what you consider weaknesses show up as strengths to other people, because you're working so hard at those areas. And the areas where you consider yourself strong, you people will tend to take them for granted, and so they show up as weaknesses. And it's an extremely interesting moment of clarity when you recognize, if you get feedback and people are telling you these are your weaknesses and you thought they were strengths. And there's that psychological part. The story I'll tell you, though, is my career accelerated so quickly that I was often, my organizational peers, my hierarchical peers, were often 20 years my senior from an age perspective. And if you're familiar with the GS pay scale,
Yeah.
in five years out of college, I was a high step 13, and then a year later a 14, and a couple years later a GS 15. And and I was self-conscious about it, because a lot of my peers, didn't understand, how it had happened. Now, having a conversation with me would reveal the experiences that I had, but the assumptions were pretty terrible. And that was the beginning of, as I got old enough to recognize, you know, that sort of response, those were the seeds of my imposter syndrome. Because surely if enough people think I shouldn't be here, well, maybe I shouldn't be here. And so it manifested in some habits, like, what I consider to be external facing professionalism. I refused to go to the office, even if I were off, without projecting a certain image. And, people say I was always on. And I remember one day at a Christmas party at work. This is when I was at NASA. And my boss's boss walked up to me and he said, unprompted, he said to me, nobody is questioning your capability. You are excellent, but you're always on. Your next step of growth will be figuring out how to relax. And it was really jarring because I felt no need to relax. These were not my friends or my family, right? These are my coworkers. But what I did discover is, as well as I was doing, my inability to relax at work was absolutely limiting the level to which I could take my performance even more. And so it didn't happen overnight, but just that moment, it started freeing the the introspection that led me to understand that anyone who questioned why I was or am where I was or am, that has nothing to do with me. That's a you problem. And so it created the vocabulary for me to speak to myself and to others. You know, if you have an issue with my being in a role, then be bold enough to explain to me why. And if it's not about my capabilities, then explain to me why. Say what you're thinking out loud, and then go have that conversation with the person who chose me. I would say things I understood that what people's eyes were telling their brains about me and what their ears were telling their brains about me because of what they heard when they spoke with me created a conflict because their eyes wanted to put me in a category based on their very limited and antiquated ideologies. But what their ears told their brain in conversation did not match because what the words coming out of my mouth clearly could only
Mhm.
flow from a place of experience and expertise.
Mhm.
And it created a conflict. Some people adjusted and some didn't. In either case, I recognize that is a you problem. It actually became enjoyable to watch the contortions on people's faces as I noticed their brains trying to reconcile what they thought I was and who I actually am. And the moments when the cliches of my walking into a room and people assuming I am a certain role and only to recognize that I am the same person in this room who the meeting was organized for. And those moments became um, not moments of anxiety, but moments of triumph. And I would say to you, not only do you deserve to be in the room is incomplete if you're not there. And every now and then, you just have to Google yourself, right? When you look at your resume, you recognize that you did those things. That exam score that you made that score. That paper you wrote that paper. And so as you move through your career, the evidence, the preponderance of it will support who you think you are, and don't let any, and especially in this world where facts appear to be less and less meaningful, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't rely on the facts to support your self-image.
For
I
sure.
loved that answer, honestly. There were so many things that you said that like stuck out to me, especially when you were portraying to us that when you spoke, their ears didn't match what they were thinking in their head. You said it a lot more better than I am saying it, but I could definitely like relate to exactly what you're talking about. And honestly, in the professional world, it still happens a lot with like people of color. You start talking, they think you're going to be ghetto or ratchet, but then they see that you're honestly very sophisticated and you're smart and you're wise and everything. And you see that kind of like surprise when you start speaking. I
Right.
honestly think that gave you, I honestly think that gave you uh advantage though, because they never saw you coming, which is why you're able to triumph on top of them, and even make a statement without even having to speak. You know what I'm saying? You know, like your presence is what the room wasn't complete until your presence was there. And I think that's very powerful in knowing that you knew your self-worth. And even though you had negative people speaking about you, you decided that your identity doesn't lie in how they see you, your identity lies in how you see yourself. And I think that was such a big thing to take away throughout the story that you just told. Um,
Yeah,
what
right on.
what I
Let me offer you this, and I know I'm interrupting you. And
no,
I
you're good.
apologize.
You're good.
I actually had an experience
Mm,
when I was asked to apply for a job that I didn't want,
mm,
and I mean, that's not a bad thing. It just happens to be not a job. That was a job I was uniquely qualified for, but I wasn't interested in the role. And being uniquely qualified for it meant the interview went well. It's probably not a surprise. The English language and I have a great relationship, so I interviewed fairly well. I learned during deliberations, as the selection panel was talking about the interviewees, that the selecting official actually made the statement about me that nobody is that good, and that was a part of the reason I wasn't selected. And it cut right, and and that's the first time somebody used the term arrogant with me or about me,
mm,
and it cut me. It injured me
mhm,
really, really deep. And it took years for me to get over that because I am actually afraid of arrogance. It's part of what led to the not being able to relax at work. All of that, and I'm laying on the couch here and being transparent, right? I am afraid of arrogance because arrogance. I had to learn the difference between cockiness and confidence.
Mhm.
Um, Confidence is built on competence. Cockiness is not.
mhm,
And cockiness and arrogance are so orthogonal to who I am deep. To be arrogant and cocky is to dismiss my creator. It is to dismiss my parents and my family and all of the people who have poured into me. It is to suggest that everything that I have done, I've done on my own, when I'm not even responsible myself for being in this world. And so it's so orthogonal to who I am at my core. And it injured me. It injured me so deep. And again, it took years for me to figure out how to balance being confident and not slipping into cockiness. And I was very guarded about that. And so that relaxed moment was even about that. And again, the freeing thing was that my confidence can be misperceived as cockiness if the observer doesn't acknowledge my competence. And that has nothing to do with me. That's when I say, well, just go Google me, go read my resume. And we can have this conversation when you've actually done the work to determine, based on facts and observations, whether or not you think I know what I'm talking about. Right. And so that it has been freeing, and I'll give the floor back to you because I think you're about to say something else.
Oh, well, can I just say, whenever, like, when you speak, you really can captivate an audience because I was captivated. Sometimes when I'm interviewing people, it's very like, of course, professional, but it's very robotic. I love how you talk and you kind of like bring me to the moment you're speaking about as if I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I heard your story and the guy saying that, I had this picture in my head of, what he would look like while he was saying that, and how you were. And I see the story as, was it that you were overly cocky, or did you just know who you are, and did that intimidate him because you didn't set the image that he had in mind for you? You know what I'm saying? I don't
Yeah.
even think it was that you were too cocky. I just think you didn't fit into the image that he wanted you to fit in, and that intimidated him because you could surpass him, and he was scared of that. You
Joy,
know?
you're absolutely correct. And that's the conclusion, right? The conclusion for me that freed me was this individual heard what he heard coming from my mouth, but his brain would not allow
Mm-hmm.
that to be attached to competence. And so he dismissed it as cocky because even at a subconscious level, he decided this person cannot have the experiences and the expertise to speak this way. And so therefore it must be cockiness because he can't have the experience for it to be competence. And again, that's a him problem. That's not a me problem because
Right.
the fact is I did have the experiences. I shared it with you, right? I mean, you saw how my career started. It is unique. Granted, I understand that the way my career started is abnormal. I probably skipped the first 5 years of a normal career, and the next 10 were crammed into 4. I get that, and and I survived and thrived where others did not, and I understand that that produced a resulting professional that would be abnormal for my age. I understand all of that.
Right.
However, as an adult, we should hold ourselves accountable for making space for individuals when we interact with them and not insist that if you either fit into the box that I have created for you, or I dismiss you as an anomaly not to be categorized at all. And if we only give ourselves those two categories, which many of us do, we never give ourselves the opportunity to grow. And where that becomes reckless is if the person who is doing that is in a position of influence and power and only has these binary opportunities into which people can be categorized. Now you're starting to impact people's lives. So when you come work for me, one of the first things I will say to my leadership team is our job is to take care of the team. We take care of the team takes care of the work takes care of the customer takes care of the bills. The job is take care of the team. One of the fastest ways to get disinvited from my leadership team is to let me find out you're not taking care of your team. I will move swiftly and without remorse. Because when you are in a leadership position in an organization, there's no one forcing us to do it. We are voluntarily putting ourselves in positions to affect the lives and livelihoods of other people. And if you don't appreciate the gravity of that, you cannot be a leader on my team because that's the job. It is a calling. It is way deeper than where your face shows up on an org chart. The requirement, the responsibility to facilitate how people make a living to sustain themselves and their loved ones is something that it has to be beyond what's written on your email signature and on your business card. And
Yeah.
so there are people out there who are not aware, and how many people it has that person damaged who didn't recover.
And I'm gonna pass it to Moria. Before I do, I think it goes back to what you said in the beginning of your presentation about believing in the divine. I think your intuition told you for a reason, like, oh, I didn't want to apply for this job, and I think you didn't get the job because they didn't see your worth. And why would the divine want you to be in an area where you need to prove your worth, because you already worthy, because you're divine, you know what I'm saying? And if someone doesn't see that, you don't have to prove that you're divine, you already are. And if someone can't see your worth, you walk away, and the divine will open up doors that someone will where someone will see it, you know.
Yeah, right on.
Exactly, Joy.
I'll pass it to
And
you.
thank you. Um, and Dr. Morgan, you have a very sophisticated voice. Like you could be a narrator, like for real. You could be a narrator. One of the questions that I have for you, one of our last questions, is many fellow awardees cited you as a mentor during the 2025 BEYA STEM conference. What motivates you to take on that role? Like what motivates you for that role?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I don't know that I recognized that there were other winners who were citing me specifically, and that brings me such great joy. One, that they felt in those moments with limited seconds on the microphone that they felt me worthy of using some of those words. And it also gives me great joy that people into whom I've poured shared that stage because of what it means. That's so awesome. You ask, you know, what motivates me? All of the people who have poured into me, I can't really pay it back, so I pay it forward.
That's
And
beautiful.
that sounds cliche, but that really is. And every morning on social media, I speak to myself out loud. So I say good morning. So even this morning, I'll say good Saturday morning to you. Be blessed and be a blessing, because I do believe that, as I teach my daughters, don't apologize for being blessed and fortunate. I want you to be grateful for it, and I want you to feel compelled to help somebody else with it. And that is just a guiding principle for me. I am so fortunate, and I know I didn't do it by myself. And so I honor all of the people who have poured into me by pouring into other people. And there's philosophies that says there's really no altruism, that everything everybody does has a selfish component. And okay, I will say I get joy out of watching other people win. And the selfish part of me is, if I get joy out of watching other people win, then I'm going to go help them win so that I can feel that joy. And if you want to call that selfish, I'll be that, right? But it really is about, one of my Markeeva isms is, if we all walk around planting good seeds, perhaps one day we'll wake up in a world full of flowers.
Hmm.
One of the keys, though, is we have to be willing to watch other people dance and play in the field of flowers that I planted, because Lord knows I have sat and rested under a shade tree that I didn't plant. And so it has to be I am doing it because I feel like I am doing this. It's a part of something bigger than me. Not that I need to harvest and reap everything that I sow specifically, but that I am willing to sow, because I know the harvest, if we all sow good seeds, the harvest will be big enough for all of us. And there's a nuance there that I think is very powerful. So that motivation comes from all of the people who have poured into me. And I do think that, part of the instruction and calling on my life is to help other people, especially with the gifts that have been given to me.
Thank you so much. That's very beautiful.
That was amazing. So many what's it? I think it's is it called acronyms? What acronyms? What you use for like the shade tree and all of that? I mean, you speak very poetically. How are you able to speak like that? Did you practice or?
It's it's interesting to say that. My wife and I talk about it all the time. Like I'll have people say, "Well, you don't talk like an engineer, you don't write like an engineer," and we I mentioned earlier that there are things that I enjoy. The English language and I have a great relationship. This is just the way I am designed. One of my old professors told me that I have an engineer's brain and a poet's heart, and an old soul. And I think that I wear that. I think that's true. I I believe that almost everything is connected. I believe in STEAM over STEM. I believe that that science, technology, engineering, math cannot exist without the arts. And I don't think the arts can exist without science, technology, engineering, and math. And if you look at history, some of the greatest inventors were what we would consider to be engineers and scientists and artists. And everything is connected in my head. And that's where the analogies and metaphors just flow. And it's because I see connectivity between all of these things that we typically consider to be disparate. And the ability to explain, I have lectures where I use, integral calculus to explain diversity and inclusion. I use the atomic structure to explain self priorities and organizational priorities, because just things they're connected to me, and that makes all things beautiful. One of the gifts that I have is being in the room and hearing people argue, and then being able to explain why they're really saying the same thing. They're just using different languages. and different interpretations of what really are symbiotic and at least complementary concepts.
Wow, that's amazing. I believe everything is connected as well. Thank you so much for your interview today and your presentation. I think we're all going to walk out here just feeling very brand new, feeling that we have wisdom that we can carry for the rest of our lives. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me. This has been a joy. I am pleased that it helped. If it helped anybody, then it was certainly worthwhile. And I'd ask each of you, as I said during the presentation, pay attention to who your board of advisors is comprised of. All of those people, don't dismiss them if you have advocates who aren't mentors or mentors who aren't sponsors. All of those are very important, the people who are pouring into you in different ways. And then please feel compelled to do it for somebody else. You are never too young to mentor somebody, because everybody knows something that somebody else might not. And so mentoring goes all across generations, et cetera. So please walk around planting good seeds.
For sure. Just leave it better than what we found it. Thank you so much. And next, you'll hear from our veteran ambassador, Celia Hurst, giving us one of her summer skill building tips.
Hi, everyone. My name is Celia Hurst, and I'm a student ambassador with BEYA Stars and Stripes Career Day, and I am here to talk about building a stylish, budget-friendly professional wardrobe ideal for working in a business environment or simply interviewing. So the first thing you want to do is start with your staples. These are going to be staple clothing items that you will wear in a professional environment. This includes a nice blazer, a good white shirt, and pants or trousers that fit you really well, but are loose enough to the point where it's seen professional. These can be mixed and matched, and neutral colors like black, navy blue, and gray can offer a lot of versatility. After you figure out the types of clothing you want, you can start looking for places to buy them at. Some good examples include TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Ross. Even thrift stores are great ways to look for products that are high-end without having to worry about high-end prices. You could also do a lot of things with layering and accessories. Make sure you're not wearing too much heavy jewelry that's distracting to employers, but you can wear enough to where it makes you feel more confident and makes you feel like you can walk into an interview and really nail it. With style also comes confidence. Make sure you're wearing something that's physically comfortable for you and doesn't make you feel constricted as you're walking into the interview. Please let us know if you have any more questions about professional wardrobes, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Celia, for sharing that great tip. And now we'll go back to Moria to close the show.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you to all who joined us for Career Day. We appreciate your participation in the chat and your questions and encouragement. We hope that when you reflect on this episode, it will be evident how important STEM can be to your own life. Thank you to our Career Day speaker, Dr. Markeeva Morgan, for joining us today and sharing your experiences and insights. Please remember to visit STEMcityUSA.com for more BEYA STEM Career Day segments. We would like to give a very special thanks to our BEYA STEM Career Day sponsor, Lockheed Martin. They are known for their groundbreaking work in aerospace, arms, defense, information security, and technology around the world. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and join us for the next Career Day on September 13th, 2025, where we'll feature even more STEM professionals, college students, and high school standouts. I'm ready to explore new STEM careers with you. We'll see you next time. This is Moria Bowman signing off.
From every corner, from far and wide, our talents merge, our futures tied. In science, tech, and all the arts, we find our way, we play our parts, reach for the stars.